not just 2 years. 4 of attorney Ginger Mooney's Saudi Arabian clients skipped town before their criminal trials or while on probation. Had the pattern been identified earlier, publicly, it's certain that Oregon authorities would have been far more vigilant when allowing her clients to make bail. Or Mooney herself could have simply stopped accepting new clients brought to her by the Saudi government, especially given the fact that fully half of them fled the country while she worked their cases. She could have turned their money down. If she had, maybe the family of Fallon Smart would have a small measure of comfort by now, instead of the perpetual unrest that comes with such an injustice. In the weeks after the hit and run that killed Fallon, her family reeled from their loss. The prospect that defendant Abdulrahman Noorah would soon be let out on bail loomed over them. The family was repeatedly assured by Multnomah Sheriff Deputy Kari Kohlberg that Noorah could not escape the country under her watch and that he would stand trial.
We were all super emotional. I believe we just had Fallon's service like 3 days before that. And, so that was tough. But the one thing we did meet with the sheriff's deputy, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Deputy, Kari Kohlberg, and she assured us that Mr. Noorah would be monitored 24/7, that it's not like the old days where it was dial up where they plug in at night and then we find out at the end of the day if they've left their house arrest or whatever. Oh. She even said to us, I don't take vacation, I will be on him, and very much tried to assure us that we didn't have to worry that even, she didn't know that we'd seen that we had a copy of that close to report, but she just assured us that he would not be a flight risk and she would have eyes on him 24/7.
But the family still felt uneasy as the months passed and everything kept being delayed. They became more and more concerned with the tone from the DA's office, that of dwindling confidence in the case and a focus on a plea deal that would most certainly disappoint.
But for sure, my impression from Sean Overstreet was at the beginning, he was very sure. He was trying to assure us that we would see some level of justice. And as time went on, it became more about a plea deal and more about calling into question the things that he was so sure of, the facts of the case.
It was just days after one of those settlement conferences that Noorah fled. His ankle monitor was cut off and he was scooped up by a black SUV and he was gone from the U.S. forever. At the time Mooney's pattern was discovered, the media questioned if the Saudi government helped Noorah and the others escape. What the media instead should have asked, and never did, is just how much help did the Saudi government get from Americans? 2 days after Noorah's escape, a sworn affidavit was filed by Deputy Kohlberg. It stated that the GPS battery died shortly after midnight on June 11, 2017, and that Noorah could not be located. However, the same day Kohlberg filed her affidavit, Deputy District Attorney Sean Overstreet told Fallon's family a different story, that Kohlberg had been on vacation that weekend and that nobody had been monitoring Noorah's GPS. That's problematic because Kohlberg had specifically told the family that she was on duty 24/7 and did not take vacations. That was hyperbole, of course, but it was understood to mean that someone was always watching. To find out that nobody was devastating. It also drew suspicion. Was Noorah's extraction team tipped off that Kohlberg was out of town? Credibility is stretched even further knowing that Noorah fled in the slim window that was open between the end of the school year at Portland Community College and before his trial. His trial had been kicked down the road far enough for Noorah to finish his classes that year, which is not the plan of someone bracing for a lengthy prison sentence. But it would be the plan of a foreign government trying to ensure that the kid being exfiltrated could easily transfer his credits in helicopter repair or whatever to Riyadh Community College. As they say, timing is everything. Most agree that these defendants got out of the U.S. by private plane, but also that they were given fake identities and passports by their government. But that doesn't entirely track, as with the 2015 Benton County defendant, who TSA traced traveling by commercial airliner under his own name and papers. What we do know is that Mooney handled his passport several times before he fled and borrowed it twice from the court. We also know that the court claims to still have it in their possession, which is clearly false. So what exactly does the Benton court have that Mooney returned to them in 2015? There are similar questions about who had the passport when the defendant fled in the Polk County case.
State versus Abdulaziz Al-Duwais, 14 CR 30024. There is no trial date on this matter. It's my understanding the state was waiting for DNA results. Where are we?
Your Honor.
Where is the defendant?
He's not present, Your Honor.
He has not appeared. You need to sit down and we'll wait. We'll put him at the last.
In 2019, prosecutor Jamie Kimberly told the media that Judge Sally Avera had ordered the passport turned over to Mooney. But Polk staffer Heidi Biddick told me that it was in the court's possession. However, there was no order for that in the record. Not a lot of official care was taken with the handling and tracking of these vital identity documents. And when you see trained staff in two separate courts completely forgetting how to do their jobs or misrepresenting the contents of their junk drawers, it raises eyebrows. Now, about those private planes. Let's take a look at the fleet of Saudi medevac aircraft which are operated by their Ministry of Defense, i.e. their military. These are small planes that have a limited range, mostly performing medical evacuations within Saudi Arabia or the immediate region. For instance, I found many stories of the planes transporting conjoined twins from places like Tanzania and Nigeria because of the kingdom's achievements in separation surgery. Such round trips can be made in a day. But here's a photo from 2021 of someone sick with COVID being brought back from Jordan. Jordan is itself a leader in providing superior medical services in the region. Why anyone in this dire of condition needed to be hustled out of Jordan at the height of COVID is a mystery, but let's put a pin in that for now. To travel to America, these planes require several pit stops. Despite that, they appear here frequently, albeit quietly, without any news or fanfare. That is, outside of the avid online communities that track and photograph and post airplanes' comings and goings. For instance, here's one at Boston Logan. Here's the same plane taxiing in Cleveland. Here's another over Philadelphia. There's a photo taken at Portland International Airport and many taken in Seattle and Los Angeles. Another website tracks planes by tail number so you can see where a plane was, how long it stayed there, and where it went next. Without these two resources, there would be almost no notice of the Saudi medevac planes going in and out of the U.S. Speaking of little notice, state aircraft such as these must provide our State Department at least 3 business days' notice to get approval to land at an airport here. However, urgent medical evacuation is one of the exemptions to that requirement. That exemption reduces the time to scrutinize a landing request, but does not eliminate the scrutiny. That being said, who would look too closely at the paperwork surrounding such an alleged medical emergency? And did anyone check this guy's passport, for instance? Given that the Saudi medevac fleet does not appear to be airlifting to safety dozens of heretofore unknown Tanzanian conjoined twins living in the U.S. or COVID patients swaddled like mummies, it's safe to say that the fleet is not always being used for medical purposes. Let's take a closer look at these flights. Depending on its origin and ultimate destination, a typical trip to the U.S. requires at least one connection in Saudi Arabia or Europe, sometimes both, and at least one more in the U.S. A week ago, while double-checking my work for this episode, I noticed that one of the medevac planes was on the move and scheduled to land near me. I watched in real time as it did, then refueled and continued west, finally landing in LA. All told, the plane was in the air for about 22 hours. It stayed in LA for 2.5 days. On its return, strangely, there was no indication of when or where the plane was supposed to land, but it was scheduled to depart from Newark. I grabbed my camera and headed there, hoping for some landing footage or a glimpse of the plane being serviced. Instead, at the last minute, it diverted to Philadelphia. I had already gotten home by the time I learned that the plane had quickly taken off from Philly and was already being serviced in Newark. And on its way out of there, it cut the line. That's the kind of special handling that a medical emergency gets you, apparently. Of the 19 known trips made to the U.S. in the last year, nearly all of the planes were parked at one of our airports for more than 48 hours. Just like this plane was, at LAX. Los Angeles happens to be one of the 3 cities here in which Saudi Royal Consulate General offices are located. Another is Houston. 8 of the 19 trips made last year were to those 2 cities. A staffer from the Saudi consulate paid bail in Ginger Mooney's cases and even hand-delivered it at least twice. It's reasonable to conclude that in the U.S., the Saudi medevac fleet operates chiefly as a taxi for consular business. It's also reasonable to assume that consular business includes exfiltrating Saudi students caught in America's justice system. Given that Mooney's clients disappeared 7 or even 8 years ago, it has been difficult to get reliable, complete, or conclusive records for these medevac planes. Regardless, it's doubtful that there would be a record of a Saudi military jet parked at Portland Airport the same day that a well-publicized defendant took off. But 2 days later at nearby SeaTac? Yeah, maybe. What I have been able to get good records for is the aftermath of this mess. That is, everything that has happened since Mooney's pattern was uncovered. There are a lot of receipts.